Welcome to Southwest Desert, where adventure meets the arid beauty of the American Southwest. Join us as we explore the rugged landscapes, uncover hidden historical gems, and dive deep into the rich legends and culture of this iconic region. Subscribe now and hit the bell icon so you don't miss out on our latest desert adventures. Please leave a like or comment. This is very helpful. Let's journey together into the heart of the Southwest Desert. A lone figure crouches by an icy mountain stream, his weathered hands working deftly to set a beaver trap in the frigid water. The year is 1830, and winter's grip is finally loosening its hold on the Rocky Mountains. The man's face is leathered by sun and wind, his clothes a patchwork of buckskin, wool, and animal fur. In a world before photographs and video, in terrain no white man had mapped, he was carving out a life that would become the stuff of American legend. This is not fiction. This was Bill Williams, preacher turned trapper, white man who lived among Native Americans, guide, scout, horse thief, and ultimately, a man whose name would be forever etched on the landscape of the American West. Imagine growing up in a place where your playground extended to endless horizons, where your friends were the children of indigenous peoples, and where survival skills weren't taught in classrooms but learned through daily necessity. This was the childhood of Bill Williams, born in 1787 in North Carolina, but raised in St. Louis, then the beating heart of America's fur trade and the gateway to the unexplored West. St. Louis in the early 1800s wasn't the metropolitan area we know today. It was a frontier outpost buzzing with trappers, traders, Native Americans, and adventurers, all converging at this last stop before the vast unknown that lay beyond the Mississippi. For young Bill Williams, this environment was formative. Unlike most white children of his era, Williams spent much of his youth playing with Native American children. This immersion wasn't just social, it was educational. He learned their languages, absorbed their customs, and gained an understanding of indigenous perspectives that few white Americans possessed. These early experiences would shape the trajectory of his remarkable life. Now, let's pause and consider the historical context. This was decades before the concept of manifest destiny took hold, before wagon trains of settlers began streaming westward. The Louisiana Purchase of 1803 had just doubled the size of the United States, but most Americans had no conception of what these new territories contained. The men who ventured into these unknown lands were truly at the frontier of human experience. At 17, something unexpected happened in young Bill's life. This teenager, raised in the raucous atmosphere of a frontier town, felt called to become a circuit preacher. Yes, you heard that correctly. Before he became the legendary mountain man, Bill Williams rode from settlement to settlement spreading the gospel. But faith alone couldn't fill his stomach. To supplement his meager earnings as a preacher, Williams turned to skills he'd learned in childhood, hunting and trapping with the Osage people. This duality, the spiritual man and the wilderness survivor, provides a fascinating glimpse into the complex character of Bill Williams. In 1813, at age 26, Williams took an Osage woman as his wife. For the next 12 years, he lived primarily among her people, fathering 2 children and becoming thoroughly integrated into Osage society. This wasn't merely a marriage. It represented a complete cultural immersion that few white Americans experienced. For over a decade, Williams saw the world through the dual perspectives of both his birth culture and his adopted one. Then tragedy struck. Following his wife's untimely death, Williams left the Osage and ventured farther west, beginning the chapter of his life for which he would become most famous, his time as a mountain man. Now, before we follow Williams into the mountains, Let's understand what being a mountain man actually meant in early 19th century America. These weren't just outdoorsmen or hunters. They were the equivalent of today's astronauts, venturing into completely unmapped territories, facing extreme dangers and living entirely off their wits and skills. By 1820, John Jacob Astor's American Fur Company had taken the lead in the Western fur trade, competing fiercely with the Hudson Bay Company and others for the lucrative market in animal pelts. These companies needed men willing to risk everything to trap beaver and other fur-bearing animals in the remote Western territories. The trapping season wasn't year-round. It ran in early spring when frozen streams began to thaw until about June, then again from September until winter's freeze set in. During harsh winter months, mountain men like Williams faced a choice: find a good camping spot with plentiful wood and game, free from hostile tribes, or winter at frontier posts or settlements in places like Taos or Santa Fe. Summer brought a completely different experience: the legendary rendezvous. Picture this: hundreds of trappers, traders, and Native Americans converging in an agreed-upon location, creating a temporary village in the wilderness. These rendezvous were part market, part festival, part social gathering. Imagine the scene: buckskin-clad trappers trading their winter's haul of furs, Native Americans bringing supplies and handcrafted goods, professional traders offering tools, weapons, tobacco, and the all-important whiskey. There was an unwritten law at these gatherings: no fighting between indigenous peoples and white trappers. Instead, the rendezvous became a multicultural celebration with dancing, singing, shooting competitions, and horse races. Money flowed freely as trappers, who had spent months in isolation, indulged in revelry until they'd spent everything they'd earned. Then, grub-staked by traders for the next season, they would quietly slip away, back into the wilderness to start the cycle anew. In 1825, Williams' reputation as someone who could move between worlds, white and indigenous, led to a significant opportunity. Congress had authorized the survey and marking of the Santa Fe Trail, and the expedition leader, Major Sibley, hired Williams as guide and interpreter. This role perfectly suited Williams' unique skill set. He would ride ahead of the survey party, laying groundwork for treaties with indigenous peoples, using his linguistic abilities and cultural understanding to negotiate safe passage. This work marked the beginning of Williams' career as a professional guide, a role that would define much of his later life. After completing his work on the Santa Fe Trail, Williams remained briefly in Santa Fe and Taos before fully embracing the mountain man lifestyle. For the next 15 years, Bill Williams became a legendary figure across the Western territories. From Wyoming to Oregon, California to Arizona, New Mexico to Old Mexico, Williams roamed the wilderness, hunting, trapping, trading, and building a reputation that would outlive him. Now, let's talk about what made Williams stand out even among the extraordinary men who ventured into these territories. Most accounts describe him as eccentric, fiercely independent, and possessed of almost supernatural wilderness skills. He could reportedly read tracks that others couldn't see and predict weather changes that would have meant death to less experienced men. His contemporaries described Williams as tall and lanky, and a peculiar high-pitched voice that earned him nicknames like Old Solitaire, due to his habit of talking to himself while alone in the wilderness. He was known for moving silently through forests, able to approach game without detection, and for his extraordinary marksmanship with the long rifles of the period. By the 1840s, the fur trade that had driven much of the early exploration was collapsing. Beaver hats had fallen out of fashion in eastern cities, and the once teeming beaver populations had been tragically depleted. Mountain men like Williams faced a choice: adapt or perish. Some accounts suggest that Williams, now in his 50s, turned to more questionable pursuits. He reportedly participated in horse-stealing raids into California and Old Mexico, running with desperate men at the edges of frontier law. Whether these accounts are entirely accurate or embellished by later storytellers, they speak to the harsh realities faced by men whose primary livelihood had vanished. Yet this period of Williams' life, controversial as it might be, served an unexpected purpose. His raids and travels made him intimately familiar with the shortest and best routes between various points in the Southwest, knowledge that would soon become invaluable. By the late 1840s, America was changing rapidly. The discovery of gold in California in 1848 triggered one of the largest migrations in American history. Suddenly, thousands of eager gold seekers needed to cross the same wilderness that men like Williams had been navigating for decades. At this crucial historical juncture, the mountain men found a new purpose. Their unparalleled knowledge of Western routes made them the perfect guides for immigrant trains, army expeditions, and government surveys. Bill Williams, now in his 60s, was among those whose wilderness expertise became a prized commodity. Williams guided numerous expeditions during this period, but one of the most notable was his involvement with John C. Fremont's fourth expedition. In 1848, Fremont, an ambitious explorer and political figure, was determined to find a railroad route through the Central Rockies. He hired Williams as a guide, despite warnings about attempting a winter crossing. The expedition ended in disaster. Trapped in deep mountain snow, men and animals began dying of cold and starvation. Williams managed to lead some survivors out, but the expedition was a catastrophic failure. Later, Fremont would attempt to blame Williams for the tragedy, claiming he had deliberately led them astray. Most historians now agree this was Fremont attempting to shift blame from his own poor decision to ignore Williams' warnings about winter travel through the high Rockies. The final chapter of Bill Williams' extraordinary life came in 1849. At age 63, Williams met a fate that befell many mountain men, a violent death in the wilderness he had called home for so long. While camping in what is now northern Colorado, Williams was killed by a band of Ute warriors. The circumstances of his death remain somewhat mysterious and have spawned multiple legends. Some accounts claim the Utes didn't recognize Williams until after they had killed him, and upon realizing who he was, returned to give him a chief's burial at his favorite spot in what is now northern Arizona, at the base of a towering natural rock formation on the slopes of the mountain that would later bear his name. Other historians believe the killing was deliberate. Williams had taken a Ute wife and lived among the tribe for years, but some sources suggest he had betrayed them, either by leading army forces against them or by mishandling trade goods entrusted to him. One particularly colorful account claims he had taken pelts from Ute trappers to sell in Santa Fe, but instead squandered the money on frivolous purchases, including bolts of calico cloth that he unrolled in the streets just to watch local women fight over the fabric. The truth of Williams' final days may never be known with certainty. What is clear is that his life embodied the complexities and contradictions of America's westward expansion, a movement that brought unprecedented opportunity and devastating consequences, often within the same historical moment. Join my Patreon community and discover my art print products on my website in the links provided in my description and link above. Also, if you would like a particular image from my videos, give the timestamp for image, and I will upload it to my website and Patreon. Thank you for joining your desert frontiersman Alan for another Southwest story. Check out my large catalog of Southwest videos and playlists on historical tales, legends, lost gold stories, and adult bedtime stories. If you would like a certain image from my videos, tell me in comments and give timestamp. Happy trails. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more great content. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. See you in the next video.